Hey guys, welcome to another video, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about navigation. Not so much how to do it, but first and foremost some of the things that you need to do it. So we're talking about kind of the tools of the trade, if you will. I have a few different things here. I have my map case, which has got a few different things in there. Now this is the one that I was just given to or issued to by the army. It doesn't really matter what you have too much. This one just works for me, and I'll talk about what I have inside here, which includes my compass. Obviously I have maps. 1 in 25,000 scales is the one are the ones that I preference with my use. They give me enough detail to be able to navigate accurately, but they also cover a pretty large area, so I don't need too many for one particular area. The other things I have here is a PLB, which I think is a really vital bit of navigation gear, because when everything goes wrong and you're lost and someone's hurt, then this is the thing that's really gonna get you out of there. So although it's not strictly navigation, it's definitely a safety feature of navigation. Same thing as leaving a note where you're going to be when you're expected to return, things like that. So often when people think of navigation, it's all about getting from one point to the other, but then what happens if navigation goes wrong? So you know, that's kind of an important part to consider as well. I've got my GPS here and eTrex 20. I've been a big fan of Garmin for a while, and the eTrex 20 works great for me. As you can see, it's not a very big unit. I'll do a separate review on that later on. And I also have my homemade pace counter. I guess this is kind of the equivalent to what most people know as ranger beads or what have you. It's just basically a way to keep count of distance when you're doing dead reckoning, and I'll explain this a little bit more later on. Okay, so moving on, first and foremost to my map case, you can see sticking out is a ruler. So when you've got the maps unfolded, so I'll take for example this one, and you need to draw, you need to find a point, you know, on the northings and eastings, which are the longitude and latitude. Basically it makes it much easier to use a ruler to be able to make things a lot more accurate rather than kind of drawing it by freehand. So I definitely recommend a ruler. I use a nice kind of flexible bendable one, so you know, it doesn't matter if it kind of gets moved around and squished in the pack, it's generally quite fine. So that's definitely something I'd recommend. What else I have in here is this base plate, basically with degrees and mils on it. It's got 1 in 25,000 scale on it with several other different scales. Again, this is quite vital to navigation when you're transferring coordinates from your compass to your map. You can get full 360 degrees ones. I just find the 180 works quite well. All you have to do is pretty much just flip it and you've got the other side of it as well. It's got mils on it as well for the military folk out there. I just use degrees when I'm out navigating. It does the job quite well. My compass that I use doesn't have mils, it just has the degrees, but definitely if you have a military compass, then you can use the mils there. Great little bit of kit. You can get them for a couple of bucks, and it's definitely something you're going to need if you intend to navigate. You can see there it also has that kind of, you know, potential ruler use, but if you need, you know, something out there, then you know, it's not going to work so well. Even, you know, you can combine both and you get an extra bit of length there too, which works quite well. Navigation is again all about being accurate, because if you're a few mils out, you know, here, then you're going to be a considerable distance, up to kilometers out over there. So it's all about being as accurate as possible. So definitely having good tools, accurate tools to help you do that is really, really important. Over here I've got my nav notes. So I've got a few little things to help me remember, you know, conversion, map to GPS. It's the line, you know, what do I have here? Millimeters of line divided by length times 100, last 3 digits. GPS to map is the reverse of that. Just in case, you know, kind of forget. I scribble notes on here. These are actually things that I've made up, so I call them the navigational data sheets. So You can see the serial, basically the checkpoint from, and I can write the grid there, to write the grid there, magnetic bearing, the distance, how long we're expected to take, where we're kind of going, also remarks, so kind of features, like the river will be to the right hand side or what have you. Reminder that the compass declination has been set, which is quite important. Again, this isn't a video on how to navigate, it's more so the tools of the trade. We can go into that in another video. Date, time, the weather, steps per 100, and again, these two things are kind of a checklist that, okay, I remember how many steps for me are 100 meters, and I've remembered to set the declination on there, and put the name on there as well. So these nav data sheets, I just wrote them up in Excel. They're pretty easy to make, and they're quite useful. I don't use them all the time, don't really use them on short navs, but they're a great tool to use when you're starting out navigation or when it's a much more difficult nav. Write everything down, double check it, and kind of use this to refer to rather than, you know, getting out your map and stuff like that. So pre-plan everything, and this is then kind of what you're using to navigate from. What else do I have in here? To make maths a little bit easier, I have a little Casio calculator, solar powered as well, in case the batteries kind of cark it, which I'm sure they've kind of have by now. You're doing, when you're converting latitude, longitude, and all that kind of jazz to degrees, and, you know, from the latitude, longitude from the map itself to, say, for example, the GPS, when you want to import coordinates into the GPS, or look at the GPS, see where you are, and transfer that over to the map, then the maths can be a bit of a pain in the ass. So a calculator goes a long way in helping you do that. It's not that it's impossible, it's just this is a time-saving feature. So I've got that in there. Obviously I've got a pen. I also carry with me usually a space pen, which are quite handy, but of course, and it's here somewhere, let me dig it out, can't go wrong with a trusty pencil, and also a nice and simple rubber eraser. So these two things definitely recommend carrying in your kit. You can jot down notes all over the map, etc., and then if you need, you can rub things out. You know, the kind of pen works quite well. Yeah, it's nice and visible, but it kind of ruins the map, and especially if you go back to the same area after a few goes, your map will be covered in markings, which personally I don't like, but that's completely up to you. Either way, it's a good little backup to have. So we've got there, it's a nice neat little self-contained bit of kit. This just goes on the top of my pack. Open up the inside, obviously we have the compass. I use a Suunto, the G2 Global Compass, or MC2 Global Compass, sorry. Great bit of kit. I've done a separate review on this. Can't go wrong with this compass. Absolutely fantastic. So that goes in there. Also lanyard there, goes around my neck if I need to refer it to quite quickly, but in terms of storage I just keep it in here. So that's my little bit of the nav patch there. Obviously the map goes in here. This is reasonably waterproof. It's or I should say more so water resistance rather than waterproof. If I know it's going to be a wet day out or what have you, I'll put this in a waterproof bag. I do have a large clear waterproof map case, which I do use every now and then, but I just find this much more convenient. So let's go on to another bit of kit. If you are doing Dead Reckoning, which is pretty much the hardest form of navigation, you kind of want to navigate feature to feature rather than Dead Reckoning, you need a way to keep count or keep track of your paces, or else it becomes a serious pain in the ass. You can buy Ranger beads off eBay or, you know, other equivalents or little pace counters, but it is quite easy to make, and it's quite nice to have your own little homemade counter. This is just made from Huchi cord. I might make a video on how to do this. It's not a long process, it's pretty easy, and it's quite fun to do. So you can see here it's just a doubled over bit of Huchi cord, and I've got these little knots on the end. So you know, 100 meters, 200 meters, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800, 900, and then I would hit a kilometer, and then I will pop these back up here and repeat the process. 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers, and then 5 kilometers. And you can see they're tied on tight enough so they don't move around, but they're quite easy to move around just with your fingers like so. So that's a nice little bit of kit. I don't use that a lot, but if I need to, it's there. It's nice, quite compact. There's nothing plastic on there. It's not going to break. Obviously, it's waterproof, and that's why I reckon it's a great idea to use Huji cord, because this thing's basically indestructible. Next bit of kit is the GPS. Now, I almost always have the GPS on. I navigate by compass and map as often as possible, but the GPS is a great bit of kit. It's a safety feature, as well as just has some cool information, you know, how far you've traveled, how long it's taken you. I really like kind of crunching the data and finding out those kinds of things about the hike. And again, like I said, it's a safety feature, so it can help you double check everything. Definitely investing in a little GPS is worthwhile. They're not too expensive. Like I said, this is the eTrex 20, and I'll do a separate review on that as well. And lastly, again, I mentioned this earlier on, getting a PLB or an EPUB, and also leaving a note to friends, family, or somebody, letting you know where you've kind of gone, how long you've been, how long you're going for, etc., when they can expect you back. Cool, so that's pretty much the video on the tools of the trade. Make sure, you know, you spend a bit of money, have a nice little map case which keeps everything together, stops you fumbling around. Definitely invest in some maps. They're not very expensive, especially in Australia. I think a 1 in 25,000 scale map is about $10. You can see I've got a fair few. Just look after them, keep them in a nice dry place when you're not using them. Make sure you fold them up correctly, and they'll last you a long time. Invest in a good compass. Invest in, you know, make sure you have, again, accurate gear to help you measure and determine bearings and things like that. Bits of paper also are great for jotting down notes. Make sure you have a pencil, at the very least one pencil as a backup. And don't forget safety as well, guys. Always make sure you tell somebody where you're going, and if you can get a PLB, I definitely recommend getting a PLB. Hope you found this video useful on some of the tools that you use to navigate. I'll do a separate video later on and some tips and tricks of navigation as well. Just keep it really simple, really basic. I know there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube. But thanks for your watching, and as always, if you found this video useful, please give us a like. I really appreciate it, and it shows that you guys got something out of it. Thank you.